Ali Aftab Saeed, and George Fulton. And the moderator is Nadeem Farooq Paracha. Nadeem Farooq Paracha is a cultural critic and a well-known satirist. He's a regular columnist for Dawn and has authored 4 best-selling books on the social and cultural history of Pakistan. Over to Nadeem.
Thank you. People are still trying to settle down. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a session called Satire in the Time of Tabdeeli. Now, a lot of people believe that Islamabad doesn't have any sense of humor. I personally tend to disagree. We have the National Assembly here. And the headquarters of certain sensitive institutions nearby. And I do not believe that one can coexist with these gems without having a sense of humor. Secondly, Islamabad recently experienced an earthquake. Natural calamities are no laughing matter, but yet the information minister of the current Tabdeeli Sarkar still managed to crack a joke about it. So who says Islamabad doesn't have a sense of humor? This is my first session on satire in Islamabad. I've done about 9 for Karachi Literature Festival back in Karachi, and fact is originally this session was supposed to happen first in Karachi in March this year. But it was cancelled because some of my friends, colleagues, and guests couldn't fly into Karachi because of the closure of the airspace due to the devastating blow the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force dealt to hundreds of terrorist trees and 1 crow, जिसकी लाश बालाकोट में हामिद मीर ने डिस्कवर करके हम सबको दिखाई. But hopefully things are going to get better now that Donald Trump has constantly offered to mediate peace between India and Pakistan by holding a rally with Prime Minister Modi in Houston. And Prime Minister Imran Khan is committed to fight for minority rights outside Pakistan. And he is committed to fight a war against bigotry and hate speech outside Pakistan. But let's hope, but I agree with him, there is a very sensitive issue. We have 2 not very rich, not very developed countries sitting on very expensive nukes, and we have to be very conscious of this, and hopefully this will be resolved peacefully. I want to get into the session right away by introducing my panelists over here. I will start with Fasi. Fasi Zaka is a sort of an all-rounder. He's been doing a radio show for FM 91 for over a decade, and he's gathered a pretty strong following that show. He has been a columnist for various newspapers, and a lesser-known fact about him is that Fasi is also an academic par excellence, and we will talk to him about a lot of stuff which he has experienced in the context of satire. Then there's George Fulton. George Fulton has been a TV producer, he's been a journalist, and he is perhaps the only Britisher I know who has actually made a green Pakistan passport and is now a Pakistani British. Recently, he's been doing a show with Wasim Akram's wife, and that is Wasim Akram, the ex-cricketer, not Wasim Akram Plus. And he seems to be enjoying it. We'll be talking to him about that. Ali Aftab Saeed. Ali was the first guest we had in our very first session on Satire in Karachi Literature Festival way back in 2010-2011. He shot to fame with a very controversial song which became very popular as well, called Aloo Ande. Which of course bothered a lot of people. So Ali has been a social media personality as well. He's been associated as a producer with various television channels as well. Recently he used to have a show as well, but he was telling me they're trying to close that down as well, or has already close कर दिया उनको. तो अली से भी हम बात करेंगे इस topic पे. So let's start off with, I want to ask the first question with Fasi. Fasi, what has been your favorite moment of Tabdeeli? What do you think is the जो आपको सबसे बेहतर लगी तब्दीली?
So very recently I met a bureaucrat from KP, really honest man, and I had a question for many years and I finally got to ask him. So everyone must have heard about the 400 Heidel projects in KP in the past 5 years. And so, you know, I asked him, like, when you made the organization, it had a bit of trouble in the beginning. It was the Pakhtunkhwa Electricity Development Organization. And I said, like, when you were in that meeting, did anyone think that maybe it's not a good idea calling it pedo? Because ever since I've seen the press, and I enjoy it at regular intervals, the press says our pedo is not performing very well. We had very high expectations from this pedo. We got experienced people, and so anyhow, it's just one of those things. And so he said that, you know, you're right. The problem was the name before it was Fido.
Okay. Okay, George, I will ask the same question to you, but later on. Before, I was going through one of the episodes you were doing of your current show with Wasim Akram's wife.
She has a name.
Oh, okay.
Shinera.
Shinera Akram. Acha, in that episode, you guys were trying to address certain Urdu words or trying to come to terms with it. Underneath the video, I noticed there are a few comments which were accusing you white privileged people, that's what the words they used, of making fun of Pakistani culture. Now my question is, do you think they actually thought that you guys were actually threatening the Pakistani culture, or they were just doing it for the heck of it because that's the thing to do on social media, just outrage?
Well, firstly, in this woke culture that we live in, as a white, male, heterosexual, I am obviously in a disadvantage. So no, I mean, obviously they will find offense at anything, but we're not making fun of Pakistani culture. The absolute antithesis of that, we're celebrating Pakistani culture because we are in Pakistan, we want to be a part of this culture, and we want to celebrate Hamara Log, Hamara culture, Hamara Khana, Hamara, mulk, And we love it here. So it's completely, people will find, on social media, people will find outrage wherever they want to.
Okay, before I ask my question.
But can I talk about Tabdeeli?
Later on.
Okay.
I want to go to Ali, and before I want to ask my next question, I would like to apologize for having an all-male panel. The truth is,
I'm transitioning.
we did try to sort of invite, we not didn't even try, we did invite a few very talented satirists of the opposite gender, or whatever is politically correct term for gender these days. But due to the timings and dates of the session, she couldn't make it. So next year, inshallah, we will definitely have more females and less man trash. So apologies. Ab yahi rakhte hue, I want to ask this question to Ali. Ali, as we all know, rose to fame, as I said, with a song which didn't go down very well with a lot of people who are considered to be on the right side of the conventional ideological divide. तो अली को काफिर भी कहा दिया, क़यादियानी भी कह दिया, और रॉ एजेंट भी कह दिया. अच्छा, one of his recent shows में I noticed that he wanted to talk about Me Too culture, and I thought that he was supporting it, but at the same time he had a few criticism, but he was struggling. तो अली, मसला क्या था कि एक तरफ से आपको राइट की तरफ से तो गाली पड़ रही थी, बीच में बैठे हुए आप, नाउ यू वांटेड टू एड्रेस समथिंग व्हिच यू वर नॉट ऑल दैट हैप्पी अबाउट, व्हिच वाज कमिंग फ्रॉम द लेफ्ट सपोजली, तो आपके अंदर वो डर था. तो डू यू थिंक कि अब ये इतनी पोलराइजेशन हो गई है कि बोथ पोल्स आर नाउ बिहेविंग एग्जैक्टली द सेम मैनर?
ये अभी जब मैंने सेशन का वो पोस्ट किया तो उसके नीचे वो मैनल अलर्ट आने शुरू हो गए थे, और ये मैं सोच रहा था कि ये जो मैनल है ये हम मर्दों के लिए काफ़ी पेनल हो गया है, पेनफुल एनल. तो उसका एक और असल में ये भी हुआ था कि कराची का जब पैनल बना था तब भी ये मसला उठा, और वो ठीक है, वो तो जाहिर है सबका हक है अपने कंसर्न्स मैनेजमेंट को बताना और वो सारा कुछ करना, लेकिन उसमें फिर एक सजेशन ये भी आया कि अली शुड स्टेप डाउन और लेट वुमन टेक हिज प्लेस. तो वो मुझे उस पर वो भी याद आ गया कि जब जियो वाला सारा मसला चल रहा था, तो मैं नाम नहीं लूँगा, एक बहुत सीनियर तज्जियाकार का मुझे फ़ोन आया कि रात 10 बजे के, अली देख रहे हो क्या हो रहा है? मैं कहा हाँ जी. तो क्या कर रहे हो? मैं कहा एंजॉय. अली तुम नहीं तो कौन, अब नहीं तो कब, घुस के फट जाओ. मैंने कहा अच्छा चलो ठीक है. फ़ोन मैंने बंद कर दिया. सुबह 7 बजे की उनकी अमेरिका की फ़्लाइट थी, और वो नहीं वापस आए जब तक सारा मसला सेटल नहीं हो गया. तो वो मैं ये सोच रहा था कि सिचुएशन कोई भी हो, सबसे ज़्यादा डिस्पेंसेबल आदमी उसमें मैं होता हूँ. मैं तो अगले दिन मैं अम्मी के पास चला गया कि क्या इतना बुरा हूं मैं माँ? उसके अलावा ये बहुत असल में ना समझ में आती है. वैसे आपने बड़े सही नोटिस किया, मैं बिल्कुल घबराया हुआ था, लेकिन मेरे लिए घबराने की कोई बात नहीं. मसला ये है कि जब ख़वातीन जब किसी से नाराज़ हो जाती है ना, तो उसको स्पॉन्सर ब्रांड मिलना बंद हो जाता है, एंड इट मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस. हमने बचपन में जो बॉलीवुड देखा था ना, उसमें था कि लड़की फंसाने का तरीका ये है कि उसको इतना आवाज़ार करो कि वो जिच हो जाए. अच्छा, फिर हमने उसको, अब ऐसा नहीं है, अब बॉलीवुड वगैरह लॉलीवुड कहीं पे भी ऐसा नहीं है. उसकी वजह ये है कि दुनिया ने ये चीज़ नोटिस की है, बंदा एक तो कोई चीज़ खरीदता नहीं है, वैसे ही उसको घर से निकलने की मौत पड़ती है. दूसरा, वो चला भी जाए दुकान पे तो वो कहता है कि वो जो 10 साल पहले मैंने जूता लिया था ना, वही वाला दोबारा दे दे. 3 इंच अगर उसका बकल इधर से उधर हो जाए तो वो कहता है ये तो वो जूता ही नहीं है. हाँ. खातीन का सीन ये है कि वो हर तरह की चीज खरीद लेती हैं, जो नहीं खरीदने वाली होती है वो सेल में खरीद लेती हैं. तो अब अगर आप खवातीन की बैड बुक्स में चले गए हो तो आपको ब्रांड तो कभी आपके करीब भी नहीं आएगा. सही. लेकिन वही बात है, हमारे लिए घबराने वाली बात इसलिए नहीं है कि हमारे पास पहले भी कोई ब्रांड नहीं है.
Fasi, I want to take this forward. एक तो इसका अली ने अपनी तौर पे उसका इकोनॉमिक पहलू भी बताया है. डू यू थिंक इकोनॉमिक पहलू को एक्सप्लॉइट किया जाता है बोथों साइड से? लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल हमने ये भी देखा है कि कोई गाने वाला हो या कोई सैटरिस्ट हो, कोई आर्टिस्ट हो, अगर वो कोई चीज़ बाउंड्री से बाहर कह दे तो सो कॉल्ड एस्टैब्लिशमेंट भी इसी तरह का काम करके उसके स्पॉन्सरशिप ख़त्म करवा देती है, और स्पॉन्सर खुद भी होता है, दे देमसेल्व्स हाथ उठा लेते हैं. नहीं यार, फॉर एग्जांपल आई रिमेंबर बैक इन द 90s There used to be a band called Jazba, and they sang a song on Kashmir, which was fine. So some sponsors did get interested, but rest of the songs they made were very, let's say, rebellious, very, one can say also anti-establishment. But the poor chaps never managed to get any Cola, any other cola brand sponsoring them. So what do you think? First of all, I would like to ask, Waki, is the satire ke context mein, is this space between the right and the left actually shrinking to actually do some independent mind in satire? Or because we've also seen, I've recently seen that people now doing satire either take one side or the other. Nobody is willing to stay in between and actually parody both the sides. Do you think this is happening, and why? And do talk about the economic aspect of it as well.
So I think that the idea of, let's say, no platforming or taking away sponsorships is something that's very old. Whatever the conventions of acceptable behavior, they call it the Overton window. This is the range in which you can get away with something. And why people have an issue these days is that there's a lot of change coming about, and it's been very quick. I mean, this is like outside of Tabdeeli. This is a worldwide thing. Isme, I think some comedians and satirists, now they have an issue with cancel culture. They have an issue with, you know, some of the more fringe issues that are taking up. And there's a lot of joke policing going on. My own perspective on this is that the problem I see is that also satirists are reacting, right? And they're reacting in a way ke, theek hai, nahi, how dare you, ke, I can say whatever I want about transgenders or, you know, about whatever minority, religious minority, anything like that. And so I mean, we've discussed this before, I always see that the fringe jo hota hai, today you find it unacceptable, but what they do is they make the mainstream more humane over time, right? If you don't take a strong position on the rights of transgenders, the rest of us will not know what they go through. Right. In 1985, Asma Jahangir was way out of the Overton window. And a lot of the stuff that she kept harping about became mainstream. Arguably, it benefited society. So I agree that kuch excesses hai and it's affecting how satirists think. There was a filmmaker and he recently asked me, can you write me something? And you know, I was just thinking, and ultimately he decided not to do it. So what it was about was actually a traditional Pakistani family, and the boy suddenly announced ke, Baba, I'm transgender. And he was expecting, you know, मुझे मारेंगे, ये करेंगे वो, लेकिन सब ने एकदम से said, we accept, and is shocked. Does the transition, फिर भाई आ जाता है कि याद रखना, आपको पूरा जायदाद नहीं मिलने वाला अभी, ठीक है ना? बाप शुरू हो जाता है, ये दुपट्टा कैसे पहना है, जरा से सेट करो, साइड पे करो. And you know, the whole idea is that even if you're going to take on these topics, making fun of the weakest margins, like abhi ek aaya recently, I saw it, and I think it's also a function of, let's say, a lot of people growing older. Ab jo youth hai, there are a lot of them who really believe in these things, and they've got a much more, like, wo jo hamara boys talk hota tha 20 saal pehle, right? You can't do it, and there's a whole different thing. So I think, like I think he's a great comedian, Dave Chappelle, usne abhi ek stand-up kiya tha. And what it really sounded like, I'm now really rich and successful, I have so much whatever, I just can't be bothered to keep up with these new nuances and these people I don't want. I'd like to actually make fun of the marginalized. And I personally think that that's a battle that is one where it's going to take us a year or two to make sense of this. Yes, there are extreme positions, there are going to be ways, but it's a learning process. Isme kuch log will be unfairly maligned, and overall I think, not now, but a couple of years down the line, I think the discourse will be richer because of it.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Usually कहते हैं कि satire emerges in in environments जहाँ freedom of speech ज़्यादा नहीं होती है, there's not much freedom of speech in environments, so people use satire to say things which they can't say in a straightforward manner, for example. But now there was a case where a cartoon published in a newspaper called Nation, which satirized Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, and result was that the newspaper was pressurized by the government to fire the cartoonist. So the cartoonist was fired. Now this is not judging what the cartoon was, whether I liked it or not, but this was the first time I actually saw in Pakistan, in this region, in this day and age, where satire was seen as a threat, right? So George, I want to ask you, you wanted to, I'm sure you wanted to react on this as well, but again, you being George, fine, you have a green passport, but you would like to comment on things as a Pakistani as well, on things other than just biryani kaise banate hain, you know, how to say ban kebab or whatever.
Can I just interfere? I find the accusation against George that he's not Pakistani enough to be a very untrue accusation. You see, George came to Pakistan, he did a show called George Ka Pakistan, understood, then he went to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gave him a nationality because he won the hearts of the people. I often tell him, you're more Pakistani than me. Tujhe to nationality bhi safarish pe mili hai.
Bilkul.
Yeah, George. So, tell me, George. Safarshi George. Do you feel frustrated that you want to, like for example, I know that you have a comment on what happened to the cartoonist, whatever the comment is, but you cannot, as I can, or Fasi can, or Ali can, tweet about it in favor or against, but do you think you can and get away with it? Because last time you did that, you commented on certain thorny stuff, you had to leave Pakistan, I remember about 5-6 years ago. So tell me, do you feel frustrated?
Bilkul. I mean, obviously, there is a problem with being who I am in Pakistan as a Pakistani who obviously has a lot of privilege being who I am, but at the same time has to conform to a society that will never truly accept me. I mean, if I'm completely honest, I'm never going to be Pakistani, you know, I will never be truly Pakistani, and that's a great advantage and a great disadvantage as well. And so, yes, I would love to comment on the satirist, on the cartoonist who was dismissed, but I'm aware that my intention will be questioned, and I will be dismissed as an today I was interviewed by Hum News and I was questioned whether I was an MI6 agent. And I said, Mera naam Fulton hai, George Fulton hai, licensed to kill. No, I'm not good looking enough to be a spy. But yes, of course I'm questioned about that all the time, and you can't. And I suspect it's the same for first generation Pakistanis in the UK, that you've got to be thankful for the country that you're living in and be, you know, Jisa, you know, I'm very thankful for being here. And it's only the second and third generation Pakistanis. You've got a guy now in the UK, the MASH report. Have you come across the MASH report? Yeah. He's I don't know if he's Indian or Pakistani, but he's doing that and satirizing the culture there. But it's only now, second or third generation South Asians that are able to satirize the UK. And I don't feel comfortable, and I don't think it's in my place, because I am thankful for being here, but it is very hard at the same time to then satirize the country at the same time.
Okay, just to add comment to, yeah, sure.
गोरे होगा घर पे, पाकिस्तान में सुन्नी पंजाबी मर्द से ऊपर कोई चीज नहीं है.
मरवाएगा यार. George, what something Ali said, not now, not the Sunni Punjabi wala, the economic aspect. Do you think if you start commenting on things beyond what you're doing on the show, Shan Masala will not sponsor you?
Bilkul. Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, everything is derived from the top. And we are in a situation, a political situation where, unfortunately, I mean, I came here to Pakistan during the Musharraf period, during an army dictatorship. And we had greater freedom of speech then than we do now. And Nadeem, Fasi and I launched a show called News, Views and Confused on Aj TV that was probably ahead of its time, but you know, and four-man show, Begum Nawaz's show, we were doing great satire in those days. And to his credit, and I'm not a fan of General Musharraf, but he allowed that freedom of expression. Unfortunately, that has gone today, and the media is being silenced. Dawn, the English language media, has especially been silenced. And it's a really precarious situation that we live in today. And the only thankful space is social media, and TikTok and various other platforms that allow us to satirize the situation that's going on.
Yeah, and they're planning to sort of ban TikTok as well, right? Actually, Ali, everybody knows, तुम पे एक छाप लग गई थी कि आलू अंडे, कि जब भी अली आफ्ताब सैयद को हम देखते हैं कि यार ये कोई मज़ाहिया बात करेगा या ये सार्केस्टिक बात करेगा, but there's another side to Ali which very few people know and don't know. He has a fantastic voice and he can sing गज़ल दे दें, गाना दे दें, कोई ट्यून दे दें. It not necessarily has to be satire, but he can do a job and he wants to do it. I personally know he wants that side to come out as well. तो अली मेरा पूछना ये है कि तुम्हारी जो छाप लग गई है कि अली आफ्ताब सैयद, इसकी शक्ल देखो अभी कुछ बोल देगा, तो that is stopping you to actually sort of fulfill this other side of yours or realize this other talent of yours. Do you feel trapped sometimes that satire की वजह से आप फंस गए, that you cannot do anything, आप खड़े होकर बीच में मतलब कोई सीरियस शो जब गाने के लेवल पर फॉर एग्जांपल इसी आर्ट को आप जरा मोर सीरियस पे एक्सप्रेस कर सके, डू यू फील ट्रैप्ड?
हाँ, इसमें दो मसले होते हैं. एक तो कभी कोई संजीदा बात करनी पड़ जाए तो सबसे पहले नीचे कमेंट आने शुरू होते हैं, ओ तू है कौन. दूसरा, सैटायर को पता नहीं क्यों बहुत ज़्यादा गैर संजीदा काम समझा जाता है. मुझे बल्कि वो एक दफ़ा मैं हादसाती तौर पे हम एक ही स्टूडियो में थे, मैं और आतिफ, तो वो आतिफ ने मुझसे पूछा क्या कर रहे हो, क्या गाना रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हो, तो वो बत्ती उस दौर में कर रहे थे, सारे शहर दी बत्ती गई है, तो वो उसने सुन के कहा बहुत अच्छा है लेकिन संजीदा काम कब करोगे. तुम ये कब तक यही करते रहोगे. तो ये एक मसला है, इसमें से निकलना पता नहीं, आपको पूछना चाहिए कि आप कैसे निकले.
नहीं वो मैं I was discussing this with Ali and he was asking me and I thank Dawn के the way they helped me mold and try to sort of come show the other side, and because I agree, because I also start feeling trapped कि यार वो मुस्तकिल सैटायर ही एक्सपेक्ट करते रहेंगे, दूसरी चीज़ों पे भी कमेंट करना है, बिकॉज काफ़ी ऐसी सिचुएशंस होती हैं जहाँ आप सैटायर नहीं कर सकते और नहीं करना चाहिए. एंड हेयर वांट टू लास्ट फसी फॉर एग्जांपल भी खान साहब की स्पीच हुई जो दुनिया की बेहतरीन तरीन स्पीच थी. तो मतलब उससे अच्छी स्पीच कभी हुई नहीं. तो मेरा पर्सनल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू था कि लॉट ऑफ पीपल रिएक्टेड, तारीफ भी इस तरह भी की, बहुत हाइपरबोलिक तारीफ थी कि बस जी ज़बरदस्त, लेकिन काफ़ी लोगों ने क्रिटिसाइज भी किया. लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में जब मैं टाइमिंग की बात करता हूँ, काफ़ी हर जगह का एक टाइम होता है. दैट वाज द रॉन्ग टाइम वेयर एवरीबडी वाज फीलिंग एक्साइटेड अबाउट इट, एटलीस्ट बी दैट. तो उस पर आके आप बिल्कुल ही एंटीथीसिस नहीं देनी चाहिए. आई वुड हैव सजेस्टेड द पीपल हु वर क्रिटिसाइजिंग टू यूज अ बिट सैटायर, अ बिट ह्यूमर, टू मेक देयर पॉइंट, ठीक है? तो उसी के बारे में ये कह रहा चाहता कि आई रिमेंबर आपने एक किस्सा हमसे शेयर किया था, मुझसे पहले पर्सनल किया था, देन 2018 के उस पर, वेयर इन अ इनडायरेक्ट मैनर यू एक्चुअली यूज्ड ह्यूमर to neutralize someone who was actually threatening you through phones. I would like you to sort of share this with this audience.
So I think jab ye Lal Masjid was happening, I was doing radio, and so as soon as the show finished, so occasionally you get emails ke maar dunga, ye kar dunga. और पाकिस्तान में the beautiful thing is जो आपको कहता है कि मारेगा वो नहीं मारता, ठीक है ना, वो तो सरप्राइज ही आता है the guy. लेकिन so I got a call, it was serious, and the guy said to me, ये जो आप रेडियो करते हैं हंसी मजाक और ये जो लड़कियां बातें करती हैं और किस किस्म की बातें करते हैं और लड़के भी एक दूसरे से करते हैं और ये वो, और मैं वही he was trying to say कि मैं वो लाल मस्जिद से एसोसिएटेड हूँ और आप हमारे नज़रों में हैं. And I'd gotten an email a week before, तो you know I was actually genuinely curious. मैंने कहा so like what are you going to do? And he goes, हम आपको मारेंगे. So I thought about it, I said like, so how does that work? तरीक़ाकार क्या होगा? Is there मुझ पे 32 बोर तो काम नहीं करेगा. तो so he said देखें, इसी वजह से मारना चाहते हैं कि like you know आप तमीज़ है नहीं, सीरियस कॉन्वर्सेशन हो रही है. और मैं कहा नहीं बता देना मुझे, कम से कम तैयार हो जाऊं, लोगों को गुड बाय कह लूं सब कुछ. तो वो कहते ठीक है, हमारा तरीक़ाकार ये है कि हम आपको 3 दफ़ा कॉल करेंगे, आपको 3 दफ़ा वार्निंग मिलेगी और फिर मारेंगे. तो मैंने कहा डज दिस कॉल काउंट एज द फर्स्ट और विल. तो वो कहते यार तमीज़ से कुछ वो करे. मैं कहा ठीक है. So by that time he was really agitated more than before, and so towards the end he said, so I said like, are you also going to repeat the same material in all the calls, या you know कुछ नया लाएंगे in this? तो कहते देखें आपको 3 कॉल्स मिलेंगे और फिर आप मरेंगे. तो मैंने कहा ठीक है, अगर मैं ये कॉल ले लूँ, दूसरा कॉल ले लूँ और तीसरा अटेंड ना करूँ फिर क्या होगा? So he just said, आप बहुत ज़्यादा ज़लील आदमी हो, and he hung up the phone.
This is a case in point, how one can effectively use humor. Actually, now George, now's the time why I ask, what is your favorite part of Tabdeeli?
Without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite part is the fact that I can travel anywhere in Pakistan on a helicopter for 55 rupees. It's so cheap.
Ali, favorite part of Tabdeeli and सबसे बुरा part?
नहीं मेरा तो है ही बहुत, मैं खौफ ज़दा हूँ इस तब्दीली की वजह से. उसकी वजह ये है कि ये तो हमारी नौकरी के दुश्मन है. ज़्यादातर जिन लोगों के पास पोर्टफोलियोज़ हैं उनके क्रेडिट पे चीज़ ये है कि जी जुमला बड़ा अच्छा कहते हैं. कोई इवेंट होता है तो इससे पहले कि हम ट्वीट करें ये कर चुके होते हैं. और पहले बात थी सिर्फ मुल्क तक, अब किसी का मिसाइल सिस्टम फ्लॉप हो जाए, कहीं पे कुछ और मसला आ जाए, इनकी जुगत हमसे पहले आ जाती है. अब तो शो पे बैठने से पहले पीटीआई वालों की ट्विटर फीड देखनी पड़ती है कि कहीं वो बात ना कर दें जो उन्होंने कर दी है, वो लोग कहेंगे छापा लगाया.
ऐसा गुड पॉइंट, बिकॉज ये मैंने काफ़ी कार्टूनिस्ट और सैटरिस्ट से एक कंप्लेन सुनी है कि द क्वालिटी ऑफ लीडरशिप वी हैव इन द वर्ल्ड, चाहे वो बोरिस जॉनसन हो इंग्लैंड के, चाहे ट्रंप हो, चाहे हमारे यहाँ अपने हों, या इंडिया में मोदी हों, या एक ब्राज़ील में भी एक आ गए हैं और फिलीपींस में भी हैं, हंगरी में भी हैं. तो मतलब वो अपनी पैरोडी सेल्फ इतनी ज़बरदस्त कर लेते हैं कि वो जो जिसको उनको अगर पैरोडी करनी भी चाहे समझ नहीं आता हम क्या करें. तो वही वाला फ्रस्ट्रेशन है कि how does one, Fasi, I would like to continue with you to continue on, how does one parody something which is unintentionally parodying itself?
So that's interesting is that like at least in areas where populism has become really big, there is this great desire to believe in the mythology. और उसमें जब आप satire करते हैं ना, that becomes really harsh because especially when the project is going wrong.
Yeah.
ये कल भी हम एक session कर रहे थे, we were doing one, yeah, and you know somebody got up and was angry कि कोई positive बात नहीं हुई, ठीक है ना, and तो उसमें and I have another experience which I said yesterday also, but I'll repeat it because I really like it. I was in a panel a few years ago and it was on education. And उसमें एक research report आई थी चंद साल पहले, अखबारों में भी आई थी कि around 60-70% of Islamabad students are on hard drugs. ठीक है ना? So now like that means like if you average household में 4 बच्चे हों, 3 हेरोइनची हैं, ठीक है ना, एक कभी ना कभी चर्च का सूटा मार लेता है, लेकिन so I mean, but it was ridiculous. Like it made that report made its way up. Like the Shariar Afridi, जो Ministry of it, he was very serious कि ये मैं मसला हल करूँगा. और so in that particular panel, the trend was कि हालात बहुत बुरे हैं. And it was also that whole thing कि हमारे ज़माने में बहुत अच्छे हालात थे, कहाँ ये drugs और ये वो. And so my point kept being is like this research is wrong, right? If you want to make a point drugs are bad, that's fine. ठीक है ना? लेकिन you can't do it with faulty data. Because even 10-15% is a problem if they're on crystal meth, ठीक है ना? But you then have to do it that way. So I was the one who was sort of on the outside. And it spoiled the mood a little bit because मैं कह रहा था कि नहीं मसला, and everyone wanted to say कि नहीं हालात और ज़माना बदल गया और बुरे हो गए. So this one guy came up to me right after the panel and he goes to me, he says, आपको क्यों बुलाया इस panel में? Like how are you relevant? How are you an expert? मैंने कहा देख, इनको पता है कि मैंने अपनी ज़िंदगी में बहुत ज़्यादा नशा किया और मुझसे ज़्यादा बेहतर नहीं जानता इन मसाइल. And so, but the whole point being, again, like what you're saying is that, like this firing of the cartoonists, the general thin skinning of the government, effectively, the guns have turned, and this is bad for society. This is bad. और एक जो argument बनती है, जोक से कोई मुल्क नहीं टूटता, ठीक है ना? वो से strong ही होता है.
मुझे एक पॉजिटिव याद आ गया
याद आ गया अली को एक पॉजिटिव तब्दीली.
हाँ, वो पॉजिटिव आपको चाहिए तो वो है बिल्कुल. वो बड़े बड़े कई बुरे कॉलम राइटर हैं जो बोर करने में अपना यदतुला रखते हैं. तो वो उनके लिए एडिटर्स ने एक बड़ी ज़बरदस्त चीज़ ढूंढ ली है कि वो अब कॉलम भेजते हैं. एडिटर उसी वक्त बताया था कि है बहुत अच्छा, पब्लिश नहीं मैं कर सकता क्योंकि ऊपर से ऑर्डर आया कि ये बहुत इसमें खतरनाक. अब जो भी अपनी ट्विटर फीड पे कोई वो ब्लॉग लगाता है ना और ऊपर लिखता है नाकाबिले इशात ये इस दफा छप नहीं सका, मुझे पता लग जाता है कूड़ा है. कोई जरूरत नहीं पढ़ने की.
Okay, I think we've got about 20 minutes and we've got a lot of people over here. I'm sure a lot of questions. So please make sure they are questions, thick questions and not lectures. Sing! Ali, you want Ali to sing? Ali, sing.
क्या सुनेंगे आप?
क्या सुनना चाहेंगे? Pandisiri. That's my favorite as well. Please.
मत पूछ अपना हाल तेरी पैंदिसिरी, जीना हुआ मुहाल तेरी पैंदिसिरी. धरने में बैठे आशिकों को सिर्फ 1000 बजट का है ख्याल तेरी पैंदिसिरी. ये मुल्क नजर आती है तेरे ख्याल में, ये मुल्क नजर आती है तेरे ख्याल में, तू और तेरा ख्याल तेरी पैन दिसरी, हुआ मुहा तेरी पैन दिसरी.
ये मेरी कमिटमेंट, मैं यही गाना कोक स्टूडियो में चलवा के रहूंगा. देखिएगा. Now we will start the questions. Please questions हो, तकरीरें ना हो. तकरीर के लिए UN General Assembly हाजिर है. One day you might also be delivered one of the most greatest. Ji.
No questions. Let them talk. They're enjoying this.
Agreed. Okay, let's do a vote. Who wants the questions? Who want them to keep on going? This mail trash. ये तो अच्छा कर रहे हैं. Thank you very much, because I know audience में काफी ऐसे लोग बैठे हैं जो गलत तरीके के सवाल पूछेंगे, जो I don't want. Thank you very much. Fasi, I'll go back to the thing. We'll go back to the question answer thing. Okay. Tell me something. Before that, George, I wanted to ask you something. When you did George ka Pakistan, it was a nice, light-hearted. I personally thought it was a brilliant concept by Gio, and you pulled it off brilliantly. अब पाकिस्तान में मसला यही है कि जब आप नेशनलिज्म की कोई अच्छी चीज़ भी करते हैं, वो इवॉल्व होके आपको पता है किस चीज़ में चली जाती है. तो जॉर्ज ने, when he finished doing that show, so Gio called him and said, we want to sort of continue with it with another show called George Ka Islam. Remember that? And that is awkward. So George, please do tell us about it. What happened?
So so they obviously George Ka Pakistan bahut bada success hai, and then they ushered me into a restaurant and sat me down and fed me, and then they said, look, what do we do next? And they said, we think bahut acha idea, George Ka Islam. You're now Pakistani, you're marrying Musliman, you've converted, you should now do George Ka Islam. And I was like, I just thought, all I can imagine was it was the easiest way to get a bullet in the head, So I said, Shukriya, but no, thank you, no, thank you.
इस पे ये जो शुक्रिया है, इस पे शफीकुर रहमान साहब का मिसरा है कि तू सलामत रहे, मैं बाज आया.
But see, George said something, and in a way he is correct, that we started our show, News, Views and Confused, during Musharraf's period. Fine, it was crumbling the government at that time, but there was freedom of speech, more freedom of speech, sometimes a bit too much. Do you agree that compared to those days, now we are in a so-called elected government, jo bhi kahe isko, democratic setup, National Assembly hai, there's no dictator sitting on her head. Don't you find this ironic? So what really happened? Do you think they learned some lessons that what Musharraf did was wrong, and then they are now using this so-called democratic system to do what they thought Musharraf should have done?
I think it's very interesting. I don't know the answer to this. I think partly is that we also work in cycles, where every 9 years we forget the dictatorship and become it once again. And this has happened throughout Pakistan's history. I think the way to look at it would be is that कि ये जो अभी आ रहा है, this level of restriction cannot be sustained. I have a friend who's a journalist, Umar Farooq, and he once said something to me, and I first laughed when he told me, but I started to believe it. He said, I said, what is it that you think that Pakistanis love the most? And he said, Azad-e-Rai. I said, I don't think so. People don't talk about this much. He says, no, you don't get it. We can't articulate the idea of freedom of speech locally in a way that's as compelling. But he says, जब भी repression या containment आई है, कुछ बरस जाता है. And people love nothing more than to talk against the government. It's a fundamental right of the Pakistanis कि जब तक किसी के बारे में, things are going down, they want to talk about it that way, और एक catharsis होती है. And so I think you're right. The irony is there that it was much freer back then than it is now. I also think अब जो there are masla आ गया, and this I learnt by watching Chaudhry Shujat. So he wasn't a great interior minister. He liked to give hum TV like press conferences. Ugly kissed kal, ठीक है ना? But
Chaudhry Nisar, you mean?
Chaudhry Nisar, right? But what I came to realize is that if you're not going to do your job seriously or for the benefit, you should be entertaining at least, like Rahman Malik.
Yeah.
ठीक है ना? He was a great interior minister. 5 साल बम फटे जो भी है, लेकिन कम से कम रिलैक्स तो हो गए हैं कि बंदा आ गया है अपने टाई के साथ. And this thing has expanded so much. Is like occasionally, like I used to hear the Tehreek-e-Labbaik sermons, ठीक है ना? Because वो जो जिस तरीके से बॉयज हॉस्टल वाली गप लगती थी, ठीक है ना? मैंने कहा बस ठीक है, अगर शहर बंद करना है कम से कम ये गप तो सुन लेते हैं दरमियान में.
अली, एक और अजीब फिनोमेना हुआ और काफ़ी उस पर शॉक भी काफ़ी लोगों को पड़ा. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू डू रेगुलर सैटायर फॉर डॉन, तो और वो पाकिस्तान की चीज़ों को पैरोडी करता था, तो दबा के इंडिया से कमेंट आते थे, वाह ज़बरदस्त, मतलब साउथ एशिया का बेस्ट सैटारिस्ट है तू. जब वहाँ मोदी आया तो व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड सैटराइजिंग मोदी एंड हिज आइडियोलॉजी, वही लोग ऐसे फिर गए, ठीक है ना? तो मतलब डू यू फील तुम्हारे साथ भी ये होता है? आई एम श्योर जब तुमने बगैरत ब्रिगेड वाला गाना बनाया तो आई एम श्योर इंडियंस भी आएगा, यार देखो ये सही पाकिस्तानी है, ये ट्रू है. लेकिन डू यू फील दैट समटाइम्स व्हेन यू कमेंट कि मोदी क्या वहाँ कर रहा है, तो आपको इंडिया से भी गाली पड़ती है? और मैं फंसी आऊँगा तुम्हारे साथ जो रिसेंट हुआ है, तो व्हाट डू यू थिंक कि वहाँ क्या हुआ इंडिया में? वो तो उनकी तो जमहूरियत तो कब से 1947 से चली आ रही है, वहाँ तो कोई मार्शल लॉ नहीं आया, लेकिन वहाँ उनका मीडिया आप देखें, वो जो कह देता है वो पूरी कौम बिलीव कर देती है, फिगरेटिवली स्पीकिंग. तो ये क्या?
मैं तो जो भी कमेंट करता हूँ, यहाँ पे करूँ वहां पे करूँ, नीचे कमेंट में आता है कि तू है कौन? मैं तो उसी में से नहीं निकल पा रहा. बाकी ये जो सेंसरशिप वाली बात हो रही थी, ये मुझे समझ नहीं आती कि इनको क्यों समझ हमारी हुकूमत को नहीं आती कि ये कुछ सीरियस किस्म के जर्नलिस्ट होते हैं, वो ज़रा कुछ गर्मी भी खा जाते हैं, वो ज़रा गुस्से में टीवी पे बोल देते हैं, कुछ लिख देते हैं. कुछ हमारे जैसे होते हैं, वो जुगत मार लेते हैं, वो अपने अपने मिजाज के लोग वैसा शो देख लेते हैं, वैसा कॉलम पढ़ लेते हैं, और उनको लगता है कि यार ये वो रेजोनेट बिल्कुल ये वही बात कर रहा है जो हम करते हैं, और वो सुकून से सो जाते हैं, और वो एक तरह का वो ढक्कन प्रेशर कुकर से लिड हट जाती है, और मेरे ख्याल में उसकी वजह से बचत हो जाती है. एक हम हैं और एक उलमा हजरात हैं जो कि जो भी हो जाए वो कहते हैं जी अपने से नीचे देखो और सब्र करो. तो मेरे ख्याल में अगर खूनी इनकलाब बचा हुआ है तो हम दोनों की वजह से बचा हुआ है. हम में से एक को बंद करो तो इधर आप देखें लाल, हाँ, एशिया सुर्ख हो जाएगा दोबारा.
तो मुझे बताओ फसी, तुम्हारे साथ भी हुआ रिसेंटली, योर ट्विटर हैंडल सडनली वेंट बैन हो गया कि किसी ने इंडिया में किसी ने कोई कंप्लेन की टू ट्विटर एंड योर ट्विटर हैंडल जस्ट वैनिश्ड. व्हाट हैपेंड?
तो टू मी इट वाज एक्चुअली अ रियली इंटरेस्टिंग पीरियड. ये जो वो इंडियन इनकर्जन आई थी, मुझे बहुत गुस्सा आया था, बिकॉज आई थॉट इट वाज सच एन एस्केलेशन, इररिस्पॉन्सिबल, कुड हैव कॉज्ड वॉर. आई एम एक्चुअली वेरी हैप्पी दैट वाज वन ऑफ द periods where we can say we got everything right diplomatically, militarily. लेकिन उसके बाद there was a group of Indians के उन्होंने सारे नाम उस ज़माने में मैंने बस शुरू कर दिया, मैं भी बिल्कुल ट्रोल बन गया था, ठीक है। और शुरू मैंने अजय देवगन से किया था, बिकॉज वो तो ही वाज सेइंग अ लॉट, तो मैंने कहा लुक ये जो आदमी है ना इतना बुरा नहीं है, ही ओनली हेट्स 2 people, पाकिस्तान एंड फिल्म क्रिटिक्स, ठीक है ना। और बट आफ्टर दैट एज सून एज दिस थिंग स्टार्टेड en masse they reported my account, and then luckily a lot of people helped me. The account came back, but they had very systematically reported a number of people. It was also a lot of fun because मैं ज़रा across the board popular भी 1-2 दिन के लिए था कि राइट विंग के इंडिया हेट्स हम, ये अब ठीक आदमी है,
लाइन पे आ रहा है,
अब लाइन पे आ गया है ये बंदा। और एंड जस्ट टू सॉल्व योर प्रॉब्लम कि तुम होते कौन हो, ये सवाल जो है ना इसका मैंने 7 साल पहले जवाब निकाला था। इट्स वेरी यूजफुल। मेरा हर सोशल मीडिया पे बस यही डिस्क्रिप्शन है कि पाकिस्तान का साबिक हॉकी कप्तान and I love it because Don has once written about me, former Pakistan hockey team captain. Recently, Daily Times has. And जब लोग मुझे कह देते हैं कि तुम होते कौन हो, तेरा कप्तान था और कौन था, ठीक है ना। और and in the way, you know, there's I think sometimes one of the PTI's problems is that जो उनके Uber fans होते हैं ना, they take it too far. Like according to them, पाकिस्तान में फ्लश सिस्टम 2013 में आया था, ठीक है ना। तो लेकिन एक जो था वो he was at me and I loved that generation. वो कहते हैं कि तुम होते कौन हो, मैं साबिक कप्तान हूँ तेरा। वो कहते हैं तेरे दौर में इतने करप्शन तूने की थी ना, ठीक है ना, इसलिए हॉकी अब तबाह हो गई है। एंड बस सो आई थिंक ठीक है ना, तू बैडमिंटन का कप्तान बन जा।
Can I just
go
add the problem with when you satirize India and Indian foreign policy is that it gets hijacked by the ultra-nationalists in this country. So I remember, I can't remember the name of the pilot. What was his name that got shot down? Abhinandan. So there was like, there was a press release by the Indian equivalent of ISPR where he was like back in his uniform, and they said, you know, Pakistan, get ready. Abhinandan is ready to return to duty. And I just wrote, I responded to that tweet and I wrote, does he want more tea? And unfortunately, that then got hijacked by like the ultra right wing in this country saying, you know, so it's hard to satirize India without it being a sort of duopoly of between.
अली मेरे ख्याल में एक फॉर्मूला बन गया है कि if you want to remain neutral, for example, but अगर आपको राइट को खुश करना है तो आप इंडिया को गाली दे दें, लेफ्ट को खुश करना है तो वाह कर दें विमेंस पावर का, तो ये सिनिकल नहीं हो गई ये सब चीज। हाँ, मतलब है
ये इससे पहले एक वो कप्तान वाली भी चीज बड़ी जरूरी है कि क्रिकेट के कप्तान का सबको पता है, हॉकी के आप बन गए, मैं अब किसी चीज का नहीं बन सकता, क्योंकि वो मैं कराटे बैडमिंटन जिस चीज का भी कहूंगा लोगों ने कहना है कि तू टूर पे जाके मिस क्यों नहीं हुआ, वापस कैसे आ गया।
अच्छा मुझे बताओ, ये hasn't this become a very cynical formula exercise with a lot of people mindlessly rhetorically use कि यार अगर आपको एक ग्रुप की वाह रीट्वीट शाबाशियां चाहिए तो आप इसको गाली दे दें, लेफ्ट वाले की चाहिए तो आप इसकी तारीफ कर दें, बिल्कुल मीनिंग खत्म हो गया मेरे ख्याल में।
हाँ, लेकिन वो पता है ये इट वर्क्स। उसकी वजह ये है कि यहाँ पे शुक्र है कि लोगों की यादाश्त बड़ी छोटी है, तो आप जिसको भी गाली निकालते हो वो 2 दिन बाद भूल जाता है, तो आप हर थोड़े दिन बाद राइट लेफ्ट करते जाओ, एक परसेप्शन आपका बना रहेगा कि आप कहीं दरमियान में हो, तो वो चलता रहता काम।
न्यूट्रल है, ऑब्जेक्टिव है, सही बंदा है, है?
ये किसी को नहीं छोड़ता। हाँ, एक वो भी है कि ये नहीं छोड़ता।
free, fair. And what do you think, Fasi? Do you think that all these positions one take have become meaningless?
So I don't know. I mean, I think इसमें एक बात मैं कह दूँ कि like there's the idea of centricism. मैंने देखा जो centrist politics है ना, ultimately it finds a way to justify de facto positions of power. Right? Like ultimately they say that, you know, this is the ideal on the left, लेकिन ये हो नहीं सकता इस मुल्क में. ठीक है ना? So you're actually siding with the other side. So I mean I prefer कि लोग जो है ना वो अपना एक position ले ले. This desire to be neutral is a bit of a difficult thing to pull off also. And a lot of people, I think some of them are truly neutral. They do a good job. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it. And there are times, ये है कि, like, you know, on this thing, you're probably saying this because you notice a couple of accounts कि जो चीज़ वावा मिलेगी वही बात कर लेंगे. I think it's more important कि जिस चीज़ को attention नहीं मिलता या जिसमें लोग disagree करेंगे but you'd like them to change over time, that's important. So, I mean, one thing on centricism that I do is एक चीज़ में मैं centrist हूँ. So I was discussing this with you. I actually liked the UNG speech. I thought it was good. I thought it humanized Kashmir. And the thing that I really do enjoy, and I've been noticing it for like 2-3 months.
He's very handsome.
I get that a lot, but not in public. No, but you know, the thing that I really enjoy these days is, and it's happening, and it's a bit, you know, the Prime Minister takes notice. कि यार ये तो दवाई महंगी हो गई है, बुला लो बंदा, किसने किया है? सर वो कल आपने जो साइन किया था. तो then he says, ठीक है मैं इमरान खान का नोटिस ले रहा हूँ. ठीक है, it did it on the GIDC and whatever, but it carries on. And that's part of the thing that, you know, starts to worry you. The other thing that I used to really enjoy, and that used to worry me, कि convinced थे इन तब्दीली के पावर में आके यहाँ कहीं मेरे ख्याल में पीर सुहा के नज़दीक कोई तहखाना है जहाँ वो $200 बिलियन है. ठीक है ना? तुम लोग काम मत करना, यही जो झुकते हैं मारो मारो, जैसे ही हम उसका खोल के हालात बेहतर हो जाएंगे. But I think slowly, at least now, on 1-2 things, I think at least on foreign policy, at a time when you weren't sure about the Saudis elsewhere, that is one of the achievements that I could say. लेकिन प्रॉब्लम वही है, डोमेस्टिक में बहुत मसला है. हाँ,
वो नोटिस से वो भी याद आ गया कि मेरे ख्याल में सबसे ज़्यादा ट्रोल ऑन सोशल मीडिया पे बिलावल होता है. वो कि पानी आता है तो खड़ा हो जाता है टाइप सी. तो उसकी वजह ये है कि उसको पता नहीं क्यों किसी ने नहीं समझाया कि एक्सप्लेन नहीं करना. वो शहबाज शरीफ ने जो एक चीज़ निकाली थी जिसको बाद में मास्टर कर लिया इमरान ने, कि कोई भी मसला हो तो कमेटी बना दिए, कसूरवार को सख्त से सख्त सजा दी जाएगी. नोटिस, कमेटी और सख्त सजा, और बन निकल जाओ.
This reminds me of my favorite picture ever. जब ये सारा पैनामा केस चल रहा था, and I have to say I love it. Like शहबाज शरीफ came speech देना, and at that time वो कोर्ट के proceedings आ गए थे कि ये तो Godfather है वो. So he came to defend himself in a large Panama hat, 3-piece suit, and and
maybe he took it as a compliment.
I have no idea. Can I, like, you'd imagine कि ये इटली से अभी आए हैं.
Well, guys, that's बता दिया गया कि we have run out of time, and thank you so much for being part of it and making this happen. Thank you all. Great.